All right, we got a real quick, easy trout spey fly or trout swinging fly. We're going to start off with a 25mm Umpqua or Waddington Shank. We're going to use some Senyo's Intruder wire for our trailer hook, and for our actual hook, an owner side drifting size 4 hook. Any octopus hook will work here, or your favorite swinging hook. I just happen to have a lot of these on hand. Real simple, easy fly. We're going to do a quick dubbing loop to add a rear bump of dubbing to our fly here. Go ahead and make our dubbing loop, and we'll take our OPST dubbing spinner, get our loop opened up and ready. We're going to kind of make, like some sculpin-y type or trout par coloration here. I like to have some color to the bump or the rear station on my fly, so I'm going to use some ice dub, some olive or some orange ice dub here. We're going to kind of make it fairly thick, about a size of a quarter. We're going to spread it out on our in our dubbing loop, and we're going to spin this up into almost a noodle, and then we're not going to pick it out. We're just going to leave it as is, and that's just going to add some bulk to the end of the fly so we can prop up our materials. I do have the hook pointed down. I like to do that for a couple reasons. The main reason for me is it kind of helps steer the fly for me. I feel like it makes that fly ride right side up. It turns that weight down. But also, just after experimenting over the years with kind of keeping fish on the hook, I've just found that this, for me, has been a great way to keep fish on. Of course, it's all personal preference. You could do up or down. I've got that bump in. I'm going to use some black barred gold variant, some Hareline micro Pulsator strips for our tail. And I like these because they're thin. There's not a lot of bulk, makes them real easy to cast. I like my tail to go just a little bit beyond the hook point there, if you can see that. We'll get that tie off point in. We'll split the hairs. Sometimes you can get your fingers wet and split those hairs a little bit. We'll get that right up against that bump here. And I always like to go a little long on my tails. That way, if it's too long, you can trim it, but if it starts off too short, there's not much you can do about it. Tie that in right over our tying point. Then I'm going to pull this strip back and tie right in front of it, and that helps lock it in a little bit. I'm going to move my thread forward, about 1/4 inch or so. We're going to start wrapping this rabbit forward. In touching turns, we're going to be pulling the hairs backwards here. And a lot of times you'll see me strip off this material, but I like for this fly to, because I'm trying to cover some good distance with my materials, I'm just going to leave that strip in. But traditionally, the more of that leather rabbit strip you have in, the more bulk it has. It can be a little bit cumbersome to cast, but since these are pretty small strips and not a whole lot of density to them, you're going to not have as many issues as you would with a normal rabbit strip. I'm just going to make sure I tie that off. You'll see there's a little bit of leather left here on that rabbit strip, so I'm actually going to use that and just lock that down and tie over top of that a few times. We're actually getting near the end of this fly already. I had a buddy who gave me some pheasant parts here, so he gave me this big giant bag of pheasant parts, and I haven't really used a whole lot of pheasant feathers, mainly just for tying hare's ears, or not hare's ears, but pheasant tail nymphs and other nymph variations. But I found some great feathers in here, some that kind of resemble spey hackle, and I'm sure a lot of the traditional spey guys will tie using pheasant feathers, and there's other things that resemble turkey flats and things, but feathers like this, just a great wispy, almost like a spey hackle. So we're going to use this to add a little bit more life to our fly and get our tie-in point here. And it's got a little bit of marabou at the bottom of it too, and there were a couple pieces of almost like marabou in here, so I don't mind experimenting a little bit with some feathers I've not really tied much with, but these are going to become some of my favorite feathers, I can tell. I've got my feather tied in here, and I'm going to run my scissors along the stem of that feather and fold that feather back a little bit, and I'll wrap a few turns here. And a couple goals with this: going to add a little bit more movement to our fly, some more eye-catching features, and just going to help it swim great too. We're just going to wrap until the stem gets fairly thick, and you'll see you've got some puffy marabou looking stuff there. That's another good stopping point. We'll go ahead and tie that in there, fold it back, and tie right over the top. And I'm really liking how that's looking. So you can see it just adds a little bit of, you know, wispiness to it, almost some leggy, buggy action, like a spey fly almost. And since we have that rear dubbing ball in there, and we've got that nice kind of propped up wing, you know, we've got some stuff to splay that feather around on. And then I'm just going to finish off with, you know, like I said, almost like a turkey flat, but it's in that pheasant package that my buddy gave me. And I like the color of this, kind of like a golden, kind of a bronzy gold color there with some brown highlights. And I'm going to use this almost like a piece of schlappen, and it's got a fairly thin stem, so nice and easy to tie with. A few turns of this. I'm actually going to tie right over top of this feather just to lock it in. I know that, you know, sometimes it looks like there's just excessive wraps, but, you know, the more, you know, especially when you're spey casting, the more spey casting you're doing, the more abuse your fly is going to take. Plus, we're kind of, you know, riding these pretty low in the water column, occasionally bumping on rocks, and I like my flies to last and not fall apart. So I'll go a little overboard with my wraps. A few turns here, and we're just about done. I'm going to get close to where my head of my fly will be, or where I'm going to make my thread head. And just going to tie over the top here. This is a fly you could, you know, for your own personal preference, you can add some flash. I like copper flashes. I like any kind of like subtle gold flashes, like you know, sculpins and things would have, and young trout. But I'm going to finish this off and make it fairly dull, and I'm going to go ahead and form a head here. You see I got a little bit of stem in there. I'll trim that off. But since it's a fishing fly, I'm not going to get too crazy with, you know, appearances. I want it to obviously look decent, but also I'm going to be fishing it a lot, so I don't really care, you know, how impressive it is, that kind of thing. But we're going to whip finish, a couple whip finishes here, and then you can finish it off with your favorite head cement. And you'll be good to go. I'll just fluff this fly up a little bit, give you a good look at it. And it's just an easy zonker swinging fly here for trout. Hope you liked it, guys, and give it a shot. Thanks for watching.